Okay, so the beginning of August, recounted airfields and tactical points. I had the tactical points right. Airfields, I was about 2 short. It's getting close, but not quite enough. I was at I ended up at 19. So I was right that there was enough padding there. At 17, I was at the beginning of the chart, near the end of that particular line of the chart at this point. U.S. 9th Division, most of it's coming in now. That gives me another operable, big unit. I don't know what all these optionals, I guess I'd pay for these if I want them. And probably do not, because that's a lot of victory points to give up. I left my boundaries where they are. I've got 4 big air points now, and I have not given myself my support points yet, but yeah. I forgot about some of my reinforcements. I got some British reinforcements that can come in because I took Syracuse, now that I've taken a major port. They should have been coming in a while ago. Yeah, I'm just going to start popping them in now, which, I have a profusion of small units for the Brits, and they could take more of the line on if those units were up there, but I'm using them to kind of spearhead my attack around the volcano, and I don't think I really have room to do a lot more quite yet. When I get that other division into place over on this side, I'm going to want to expand this way, but we're not quite there yet. I've gotten myself in a position where these slow Canadian units, and I can't even give them pack transport, I don't think that would help here, but can't quite get to this unit properly. I mean, I could get everybody into this hex, but I want 2 of the big units attacking each unit, and I don't think I can get here either, because this guy's got a zone. So he would be really hard to get to. And I can't really get to this, and I can't really get to this. There's basically nothing that I can get the perfect attack or the decent kind of attack on. I'm continuing to push the rotten spaces on the line. I'm keeping going here. This is not a rotten space. This is probably one of their strongest things. I threw my Canadians in, threw another brigade in here to give me a little bit more strength than regular units give me. Try to break that, and also against here, and I'm just going to try to make this whole salient just uninhabitable. If I can plug this up, I can start dragging more forces towards going around the volcano, because I don't know if I can just bash my way through the road. We'll see. Mussolini didn't surrender, or didn't get deposed, so there's no Italian surrender. The U.S. launching attacks against weak Italian coastal units, trying to get rid of them. And I think they're the ones that go away and surrender. And again, punching here. 9th Division gathering for an attack here. I'm leaving the rest alone. The line's too weak to attack. It may be too weak to defend too, but again, all the concepts that are in play about that are still in play. The U.S. really, might be taking chances with this, but I look at the axis and I'm like, wow, I'd be taking a much bigger chance to go kill those units. Overall, a very good turn for the Allies. First of all, whatever the hell this is, the U.S. 3rd Division, boom, just broke right through. Just smashed the unit and got a huge advance off of it. And there's nothing back here, and probably nothing to get there. We're going to have to just fall back and abandon the whole of the western tip of Sicily, including probably Palermo, although maybe we'll fall back there. 9th Division is coming up this way as well. This probably isn't enough to hold it. I ran out of 1 counters, so I refreshed the pool. When I look at the variable combat series that MMP put up, they actually explicitly have you replenish the pool with every draw. Now, that's not as big a deal for me. One of the problems with doing that in this game, if I played that way, and I think I used to, was because I thought more randomness, better thing. I'm not so sure I feel that way right now, although I do feel that each draw should be independent of all others. The counters kind of preclude that anyway. One thing that I had against that is I have 2 draw cups, and it's hard for me to keep track of more than 2 draws. So having these 3 set up where I can kind of almost see them works all right, and I don't think I'm getting any subconscious influence. If I feel like there's any chance that I saw something, I shuffle them up. But the problem with reshuffling them every time, first of all, it's a little bit more effort, shake, shake, shake each time. Okay, no big deal. You don't do it that often. But the other is that I only have 2 little metal cups. and it's also hard to keep track of 3 different cups, like if they were labeled or something, sure. But anyway, seriously minor problems. But the U.S. also managed to succeed in both of these attacks and punch its way through and kind of break the middle of the Axis line. And that's going to cause some problems getting these guys who are kind of bulging out a little bit out of the way. These guys will be fine, I think, although they may have some limping to do too. But I think I'll be able to maintain a line going back here. But these guys may get themselves in some trouble. The Canadians failed. They got pushed back, no damage. They could have stayed there and forced a withdrawal, taking a hit or whatever. But I'm not a big fan of doing that. I think the withdrawal is going to happen anyway. But this is the big one. Both these attacks succeeded. The Fallschirmer fell back. The other unit was beaten up pretty badly. This unit is pretty much doomed. The question is, how much more do I want to lose along with it? And the answer, of course, is none. So I'm going to fall back a little bit further and try to give up volcanoes, the areas between the volcano and the coast very, very slowly, because that's a complete bottleneck. But I think it's time for the Axis to start considering the withdrawal process. But we're only on turn 12. But in terms of, hey, we'll try to defend as best as we can here and get as many units out of the board as we can so that we take a lesser point cost. One of the problems this game has is such, a kind of painful, I don't know if it's a problem. It has such a painful calculation for victory conditions that it's very hard to assess what your victory really is and what you should be doing early. Like, hey, if I want a marginal victory, do I have to stand here an extra day? Well, commanders don't really think in terms of that. What they think about is, okay, my line broke. It's time to set up a defensive structure and start withdrawing troops because I'm not going to be able to hold Sicily. And then afterwards, it's worth assessing, well, how badly did I do? But games kind of impose this other side on you that makes you want to win the game or lose it less and hit a barrier, hit one of those little fences nicely and just go a little bit over it and get your bonus that way or whatever. And I'd rather not play that way, but, obviously if you're very competitive, that's what you're going to want to do. And I don't know. All right. Let's see how the Axis reacts to this crap. Let's take a look at what the Axis line looks like. That unit was destroyed, of course, but we pulled back. Not of course. It's possible it wouldn't be, but we pulled back a little bit. Not the most pleasant setup, but it's what we've got. One more unit slipped over from behind. This was the unit I was sending this way when the line broke. I had to go in. Trying to get out, but it's hard. It's really hard with these slow units and everything. And, other units could get out more quickly, but then I kind of want to provide some cover. These guys, the Goering Division pulled back a little bit. Over here, I can be here because that's a town. In fact, I kind of could have been further back, but I want to cover this artillery. Don't want to lose artillery if I can help it. It's going to be hard not to, though. Over here, things are a little disjointed. The whole side blew open. So, but we got an armored into Palermo. We're going to try to get another unit, more defense into there, in the hopes of slowing things down at least by a turn or two. In terms of taking that, getting into place. It's not like either of the Allied sides really needs, to get to get points into play. And the Germans have one armored point. I'm having trouble with the replacement points, but I don't think the Germans can use an armored point. The U.S. used one to increase one of their airborne units. I think I still got a couple of them kicking around that have a piece of pointed damage on them. It's not that big a deal. The biggie is I don't have the points where I need them. So like Canadian infantry, sure, I might take a Canadian infantry loss, but it's the armor that I'm more willing to take losses on because that's the little units, and I don't degrade if I recover those. Same thing with the little units for the Brits. It's the infantry that I've got a lot of that I've been taking losses on. I can't recover those. So that's a little tricky. So far I haven't used any pack animals. This US 3rd Division is actually the one unit that could use them on the US side. So that actually probably should be what's focused on going in here. But it didn't, when they blew this open with such a big advance, I wanted to take the extra spaces. And I just can't see the Axis holding the hills here. So I don't think those are going to come to any importance at all in this game. And for the Brits, I can use them for them, but they're in the lowlands here. They don't really care. The first highlands they're hitting is over here, and this is, of course, the volcano. The mountain units don't like that either. Weather's good again. I don't know if there was anything exciting that happened. I spent a British armored point to rebuild the unit. I'm at the top of the chart here, and it's just going to consistently be there. I'm not going to make so many attacks. I just don't think it's possible with the types of forces that the Allies have. So what do we got? Well, we got the 3rd Division swung around and getting into place to attack Palermo. If they don't defend Palermo heavily, what I've got there is enough to take it out. Part of the 3rd Division ran to get this airfield. I don't even know if that was important. I'm at 21 airfields at the end of this turn, no matter what, which puts me on the final chart for that. I probably shouldn't have gone out of my way to grab that. But there aren't a lot more left. There's this one, which I will be getting. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna take a hit on the airfield, and I'm gonna put some sort of marker to remind me that that's still German controlled. I can send some crappy little unit there at some point or another. I moved the line so that I could have access to this road. Now that means the U.S. is having to escape, but that's okay. They're working on it. Two of their units are stuck behind the line, on the wrong side of the line. U.S. ended up launching only a couple little attacks here. We'll see. Oh no, another one there. Just to try to clean up some of those Italian units that are causing, they're sitting in the center of the line. If I can get any kind of breakthrough there, it's going to make life very difficult on these guys. Over here, I'm beating the crap out of that thing. So I'm attacking the Fallschirmer again, but probably at kind of crappy odds. And I'm using a division that's a little beat up to do it. But I'm using another division to try to get behind it and get it trapped in a position that it can't really escape from. And it'll end up, in a hard place. Sometimes you got to make sacrifices. And this is clearly a situation where it seems worthwhile. If the Germans are going to leave a good unit up at the front like that, yeah, well, let's take it out now. Otherwise, there are still thin places in the Allied line, but again, they're just not worth charging after. And the Germans here are indeed badly pocketed. They did drive off the one force. It was a close thing. It actually was on like the 3-to-1 table with, firepower support and everything coming into play, and the air support. I think that's down to 1. But now they're cut off, and they will be getting an out-of-supply marker, which means they're not going to be able to break out very easily. And can they be bypassed? Well, that's a question. This force could just keep going, or it could coordinate and work on, a lot of units attacking at once. And that's kind of the issue. I could also send part of that force up to try to hold, you know, a piece of the line, as it were. This will never have to attack because it's sitting in a town. But over here we punched through, and you can see that's going to force the Germans to fall back there. Gains over here with the one U.S. attack have indeed split things into an ugly position. That's a U.S. unit back there. And yeah, it's in supply for now. It may not be, it may be hard to maintain supply, except the Axis has really nothing that they can throw in there to cut them off. The Axis, the German, their black shirt, etc., can try to skittle out of there, but they're getting cut off from their escape route. Trying to make decisions based on this schedule of victory points, and oh man, and I don't know if I can. At least even broad decisions. So it's only 5 points per turn if the game ends early. Okay. But replacement points were each worth a point. I didn't know that. Damn. And I would not have been buying. I would not have been expending them because at least, in some of the cases, I've been putting them on units that I'm like, well, whatever. Can't waste these. Yeah, I can. I feel like I'm going to have to just play it by ear and see what I can do, and not really know what's going to happen until I actually calculate out those victory points. Okay, things are kind of complicated for the Axis. First of all, I brought part of the Goering division over here to try to help hold the flow. I could have brought more of it in, but I'm holding off on that because I kind of need more strength in this area, but I am pulling them out. These forces are trying to make their escape, and in order to do so, I've got the German, whatever this is, probably Panzer Grenadiers, making an attack because it's really the only way that I have of getting clear in terms of it just was getting into stacking problems. I'm giving up these black shirts, whatever. There's no overrun in this game, so that's okay. I'm putting a block here. I got a couple of units that are just sitting out there waiting to get killed. But there sort of is overrun because if you get a high enough rating, you end up getting an advance afterwards. So it's not like it's completely missing. Oh boy, the new game. The new version of this series uses reserve movement as well, which, reserve movement existed in the toolbox that wargame designers had at this point, but it definitely did. No Panzerkrieg had it. Might be the first. But, there was kind of the feeling that you could get away without it in something like this. I'm not sure how the combat results table works in the new one either. That may be significantly different because this combat results table gives you the opportunity to really create a breakthrough. But what it doesn't do is give you the ability to bring your follow-up troops through the breakthrough. So, a terrible attack, but it wasn't a good one, and they lost, especially with the extra air power thrown in. And pushed further down the road. Guys attacking from here. I could have made it to here, but I think I'm better off being on the road, even though structurally I'm more likely to be attacked in this position. And it's like, let's get out of there with the decent stuff as fast as possible and see what we can do. Front, the fighting's going to be on the Americans this turn, although it's kind of spread out. The heaviest attack is actually by the Brits on the Fallschirmer unit, but it's half because it's isolated. And I had it marked out of supply. It was actually isolated. It was completely surrounded by zones. I'm concentrating on that. That's too big a unit to take any chances on. And that gives the Axis a little bit of time here. So it does get to buy them some time, but that's one hell of a big unit. It just had a great counter on it, basically. Other 3-point units, 3 morale units, whatever. that is the morale, right? The other game changes things. So here they have combat class and morale. The other side of the design, that the variable combat system one, actually I think calls the morale class the letter. It kind of mixes those in a different order, and I'm not sure if that's an intentional change. Most of the changes in it appear to be intentional enhancements, some of which maybe I don't agree with, but or think are necessary. I understand the purpose behind them. But you can see the Brits mainly aren't attacking elsewhere. They're making an attack on this Italian unit. I couldn't get the Americans out of here, I think. I may have screwed up and not moved them as far as I could have, but that's only to the Allies' disadvantage that they can't move. And on the main problem is I couldn't get enough force to penetrate in any of these locations. So I've got to get more power against the flanking type situation. Now the fact that I'm delaying here means that there's more opportunity if these things survive, for example, for them to join that positioning. Over here, again, a little bit of attack by the U.S. A couple of locations getting rid of that artillery. Actually, I'm giving up the divisional integrity bonus to try to kill the artillery, because the artillery would have the same effect. Again, trying to pick off units in the background, and finally Palermo itself. This is the main line of the Axis at this point. Anything that gets out of here is just gravy. Things look pretty damn bad for them. And usually I'm okay on defense, but the terrain here is, you know, it's tough on attack, but it's also not easy on defense because it mucks up your withdrawal patterns. The attacks. We got a huge breakthrough type value here, but there were enough steps there that we really couldn't do anything. We got one hex advance into the space. Over here, nothing, but here there was a big crack through, and you can see the Brits have set themselves up in a position where these Axis units have to pull out. So there's no way the line's going to continue kind of down this way. It's going to be coming from the volcano straight down through this bad terrain. That's all we got there, you know. The Liv unit got pushed aside as well. It too will have to try to find its way down to the coast. Over here, success everywhere for the U.S. except against these black shirts. I had a small group of Rangers and such attack them at moderate odds. They got flung back, and these guys are actually going to buy a little bit of time, but this was 1st Division, I think, pushed its way in. That's kind of a dangerous place to be, but this whole force will get bagged if they try to destroy that. So I think it's fairly safe. We might see these units trying to perform some kind of rearguard action. As of right now, they actually are in supply because they're in kind of low terrain, and this doesn't project a zone, so we can trace down this way. You can see that sucker went, I don't remember the port rules. I know it's 2 turns to begin with because it's Palermo, but beyond that, I think a high roll, 5 or 6, is 1 or 2 more turns of delay. So I think that's only a 2-turn delay on that port. Okay, and the Axis doing its best to pull back, forming a line here on the volcano, another one coming down. This is a new reinforcement. I think that's our last German reinforcement, or our last Axis reinforcement. One thing we're in danger of, this is flipped over to indicate 24 more points. That's 39 points on the tactical. So we're up here. It is almost assured that when we get to turn 15, which is next turn, that Mussolini is going to get overthrown. There's not a lot of chance of the MX, which is sort of the immediate collapse of the Italian resistance here. So we might get a little bit of time there. Chances are that most of the Italian units, I think, are going to be in trouble. I haven't looked at those rules too carefully. It really doesn't make a lot of difference. I'm trying to back out as much as I can, but I may be relying on units like this to be there that may not be there, next turn, and that could be a serious problem. But generally, this is now our line with units over here trying desperately to make their way back, but that doesn't look too likely. It looks like, these U.S. units are going to cut the road before we get a chance to get out of there. It's just too hard to maneuver quickly. It's too hard to withdraw quickly for me to have any hope there. Now, in terms of U.S. reinforcements, these are all optional, so I probably am not going to take them because they cost victory points. These guys are optional as well. Boy, are they unlikely to be useful. There are no ports near Messina other than Messina itself. And the game ends if you get Messina. So, unless you need them for some kind of weird mop-up or something, I just don't see the value of those. This is not a scenario where you expect the Axis to hold on the island at all. It could happen, but it's obvious that the intention is that they will be trying to evacuate their forces. Now, is that the best thing for victory points? I don't know. I mean, it might be possible to hold out until turn 20. It doesn't look like it in this particular instance, though. It looks like I've gotten my ass kicked as the Axis. All right, on to, what are we looking at, the 7th of August. So we got the Mussolini fall, and I think one of the effects of that is I can no longer bring in the optional reinforcements. That's not clear, because the way it's worded, it might just mean for the reinforcements, if this is the one roll for the reinforcements, it's kind of odd the way it's worded. That's all I want to say about it. But I don't think the Germans want to, or the Axis wants to bring in those German units. They just have to get them back out, probably. The modifiers for the Italian desertion are such that it's really unlikely units will go away of any value. So like a unit with a morale level of 2 gets a -1. You have to roll a 6 for the unit to disappear. Battalions with a strength of 2 get a bonus. When units are in bad supply or adjacent to Allied units, they might withdraw. All we had was 1 desertion, and it counts as a death for the point values. These are units that are surrendering. So it's not that big a deal, And it's just a single step loss in each case, so something like this might take a while to dissolve. The VCS game, again derived off of this, also has desertion rules, but I think they're baked into the standard rules. Basically, isolated units start deserting or surrendering no matter what. So, well, they have our ball for it. But anyway, it's time for the Allies to go. I forgot to bring my port units in last turn or move them. I think actually I had room for it there, so I'm okay. But having them kind of sitting out in the water wasn't a good idea for me to remember to bring them in. Okay, for the Allied attack setup, we're making attacks all along the edges here. The 9th Corps, or 9th Division, pulling in behind to just cut these guys off, try to pocket them as we swarm here, hitting these black shirts here. Hitting some more Italians up here. And then we schwack into the German line with the Brits. And again, aiming just for a couple of places where they've left some raw edges hanging out. Here it's a lot harder. We're hitting, there's not a lot of ground. We're hitting the 1 unit. We could not reach here with anything sufficient or significant, but maybe we'll be in place. I don't know. The Italians really have to stand around in a location next to the Allied forces if they're going to end up getting that surrender penalty. So overall, not a great turn for the Allies in terms of attacks. I shifted the boundary a little bit. I don't remember quite why. Something to do with being able to get the Brits, or not needing the Brits to be over on this side, so I shifted it just a little tighter. And let's see, we failed here, thrown back, but we succeeded here, and that's kind of big. We must have succeeded there. I'm not positive of that. That looks like a pretty healthy unit. Yeah, we must have succeeded there and advanced as well. We have some artillery in that region, so that's kind of useful. Elsewhere, though, although these guys were successful, no, they weren't. They were flung back. Right? Yeah. These guys were flung back. Here, there was a success, and we pushed that forward, as there was up here. You'll notice all those out of supply markers. That's because we've pretty much cut the line. There's no longer a supply line going back to Messina. And I don't think there are any units that are unable to trace to a road at all right now. This comes the closest. But, you know, now that really kind of puts a crimp on the axis in terms of any chance of trying to break through or anything. Their units are much, much crappier for that. Those are optionals, okay. Just wanted to make sure I'm not getting more replacement points. Not that I would be using them. Now that I know they cost me victory points. Gotta get rid of this. Someday I'll have a port there. Really tough situation here. The Axis has moved their pieces. But basically, they have enough units to kind of hold the line. It's gonna break, but we have nothing to withdraw if we're holding the line here. And we can't really withdraw any faster than this. So I'm trying to give ground as slowly as possible rather than, you know, just try to evacuate units. I don't think I have any hope for this force here that withdrew, you know, kind of into a clump. In a sense, if Messina could be grabbed, these guys become just victory points at that point. But prior to it being grabbed, I have to kind of worry about them to some extent. So there is a factor there. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, as long as I'm holding like crossroads and stuff, it's going to be pretty hard to get a trace going back to Messina. But maybe the Allies will screw up. But more likely, what I'm going to see is kind of trying to give ground. Every turn that I stay on the map is another 5 victory points. Now, those big units that are on the map, they're worth 5 victory points too. So, you know, there's kind of a, is it worth trying to hold the thing for a little, you know, the edge of the map a little bit longer, hold Messina just a little longer, or, you know, can I try to get units off? Well, as it stands right now, getting units off isn't really a good option. Like, some of these could have gone flying back pretty fast, but for the most part, I would be abandoning units. So I might as well take losses that are probably less than what I'd be abandoning and see if I can fall back and improve my position there. And again, you know, when we get to the end, we'll see what the score ends up being. I have absolutely no idea. There's no way to make judgments like, oh, we got to make it a little bit of harder push. It's more of a, okay, well, how did it go? You know, kind of a post-mortem type thing. We're too tied up in the midst of everything to really be able to make any kind of idea of, well, we would consider it slightly better of a victory, you know, if we did this. And I think that's fine. It's just, I can see where that would upset, because I kind of want to do the accounting, the very competitive player. And I do have some bents that way, much as I try to deny them. Okay, so the attacks again this turn. The Brits throwing themselves against the wall. I could drop some paratroopers behind there. It might be worth it, just because of the damage I'm taking on these attacks. But I feel like I should be able to succeed without them. And there's a risk whenever you throw paratroopers. What is it? Southeast. So if I drop them here, there's a chance that they'll, because of the prevailing winds, they'll just end up dropping in the ocean. And I don't want to chance that. Plus I have to pay to even just bring the unit in addition to whatever I pay if I lose it. Pulled back a little from here so that I could launch attacks on these units. Brought the Americans here, and you can see I changed the boundary so that they can sort of slip along that coastal road. And that's, I'm going to be playing little games like that all along. Over here, we're trying to reduce some of these out-of-supply units. I couldn't quite get to this with enough force, so I'm using the mighty third to help, the big unit out of the third, to help support the attack on this, and then also driving over here. I'm hoping I can just, reduce them by a couple of stacks, and they're so hemmed in, they're not quite isolated. If I move, see, the problem is I can draw a supply line technically, unless I'm adjacent to all their roads that they're adjacent to, they've got some supplies kicking around in there. So I don't think there's a way that I can really cut them off, so I'd rather stay here at this airfield. I actually don't have to really track this or the airfields. I'll count them up later if I need to. I think I gained some, but it's hard to tell now. Just because the coastal road, there's like 3 or 4 points on here that I don't think I had, but I'm not positive about. And then in the middle, I still got some American troops kind of inching their way forward without an easy path in any direction. What mixed results. We got a success against the Italians here and get to stay in the location, but we did get pounded back, kind of in an ugly fashion. That thing's just hard to dig out. It's a pretty good unit. Everywhere else, I think the Brits were successful. Over here, the Americans busted this open a little bit, and then over here we did reduce those 2 units. So overall, a pretty good turn for us so far. And the Axis has to start their, what the hell can they do? The Axis is pulling back towards Messina still, as best as they can. This guy's probably doomed too. This one, though, is definitely doomed, and these guys are launching an attack against some infantry there. There's actually an extra air unit available for the Allies, so if they end up with numbers they don't like. The Germans' lucky day. There is a town under there, so they didn't have to attack. That was ugly, and it would have been on the worst table. Actually, I rolled the dice before I found out there was indeed no reason for the attack, and I pulled a shit that I threw back in. But here we were successful and beat the U.S. unit, spending a support point. And that gets us to the 11th of August. The Allies continue to throw their weight. What is this? The 45th Division? Trying to push that along now. It's kind of iffy. That might be a decent unit still. Ooh. I don't think I moved this artillery. It must have. It must have come from up here. The Brits trying to wipe out these, and also everything except the 1 unit along the coast. It's kind of hard to reach. We'll see where it goes. And then we're trying to crush the out-of-supply units. This one may be an iffy attack as well. I don't know why we're concentrating on that, but if we can clear these out of the way, it makes it easier for us to move our units, for the run for Messina. Italians here threw the Brits back, but elsewhere we were successful, including up here. And over here we were also successful, and now the Axis has to try to pull away again. And we're running out of room to hide in down here. But whatever. It still feels like, losing one of those big units is the cost of a turn. So I don't feel like I'm going to lose a whole big unit all at once in any case. In which case I'm paying less than that. I may be paying more than for a turn right now, but I may be able to hold out till close to or past, up to turn 20 or whatever. So withdrawing isn't absolutely necessary unless I'm going to lose Messina. Now these guys, like I said, they're just doomed, but they are serving a purpose all the same. They're preventing all of this from just force marching down that highway and you know, that would change the whole nature of the game. But they're within range of it, so there's no way I can speed down it. Okay, so here we are, what is it, 13th of August. The attacks are getting harder and harder. The traffic jam over here is just hideous. You can see all these Brits, but I am launching an attack here. I'm not doing one here. I could have squeezed one in, but it just was not looking like good odds. The Americans are making an attack here that doesn't look terrific. It's sort of the best I could manage. I don't think I moved these guys. And I have room to get everyone into there just to give me a little bit more power in case that fails or as backup. The artillery is not in range yet, and I'm not sure that attack's going to work, but I think everything else is going to work. I have 3 attacks basically. Get rid of this and then be able to move things up. I did shift this back a little bit more, give a little bit more room. Uh-oh. Okay, I'm going to have to kind of do fancier stuff. So what we basically have is something like this, and then there's an, yeah, I mean, I can jiggle arrows all over the place to make sure this works, but there aren't enough arrows. That it's still allowable, but basically I just have to have created a functional line between the two. And that line does exist. I just don't have the components to put it into place properly because of the mess. I thought I had this set up properly, but I didn't quite. I was trying to give the US more space, and I have to just give them space right in here, you know. The Allies are successful everywhere, however, not as successful as I had hoped. Here we succeeded in pushing them back, which is about what we could positively expect. It actually was not that great in odds, around 3-1 or so. Over here we destroyed the unit, but here we didn't kill either of them. All kind of advantages, etc. I don't think I advanced. These guys can go forward. I actually have a forward 2 on this one. But you can see these guys escaped, and I'll continue the advance, and then I'll fall back as much as possible. And as we head into turn 19, the 15th of August, pulled some remnants back. Have not evacuated them. I think this guy could have actually evacuated. These guys could have also evacuated, at least the armored unit could have, but I'm keeping them to kind of hold the Brits at bay a little bit longer. I don't think the US can bust through 2 units here, and that's my plan, is, you know, another turn, maybe sacrifice another unit. At best that's or at worst that's a wash. These guys, these don't have to attack, they're in a town. These guys slipped away with no zone of control there, and, you know, basically these forces have kind of done their job and kept the majority of the US Army from being able to throw its weight down right at Messina itself. The Brits are being clogged up, and overall I think we're seeing kind of more or less the expected result from this scenario, which always makes me a little happy. Yeah, I'm pretty much right on schedule, trying to clean these things still up. I cut the line. It's a little weird now. So like, it comes to here, then it shifts. Now here I jag over and slide down across here so that the US has room to make this attack. The Brits making an attack over here, and probably not a very good one, and then cleaning these up. This one I assume we're doing okay with, but we have no artillery support. We couldn't get it in range yet. And so that, you know, that's a German unit. It might hold out. And the Italians are sitting in Messina, so we might well be in a situation where the Allies just are not going to take it at the end of the game, but it looks more like, you know, maybe going to withdraw and give it to them on the last turn of the game. We'll see how these battles go. If the battles go okay for the Germans, I don't see The Allies getting the tiny tip there. In a sense, the Axis fucked up, because you can't evacuate from an enemy-controlled hex, and that's all I got right now. But I still think I can hold Messina. I thought I could pull the Italian unit out and bring the remainder of the German units in there. I think there's still a fairly good chance of it, so I'm just going to fall back there. There's no zone until I get there, so I'm fine. These units are gone. These guys got pushed back, but that's not a big deal. They want to get to Messina. I can't do a coordinated attack with Brits and Americans, and I think we're actually going to sit there, and that's actually kind of a big deal, because that's there's you know, a victory point cost to not having taken it, and the units aren't captured either. So what I did was I actually swapped the Italians out, because the German units are stronger, and I'm going to sacrifice these guys. There's, you know, the 5 points for the turn, but that means the Brits aren't going to be able to push into there at all, and it's just the Americans who are going to be able to hit Messina, really. And I think, you know, I think we ended up with a good solution for that. So we didn't see a single withdrawal. I don't know if that's good or bad. I mean, it means that all the Axis units were wiped out, which may be enough victory points to make the fact that we didn't take Messina kind of a moot point. I only moved a few pieces. What the Brits could get up against this Italian unit, what the Americans could get up against this. There is no way for any other units to influence this combat or the rest of the game. So everything from here back is, I'm just not doing anything with. One thing I gotta notice, we've had severe mistrals 3 turns in a row. Now, I don't know if the historical weather conditions, if you play with those, there's like a little bit of yuck on the first turn of the game where it's tough to deal with. And from then on, the weather's fine. Maybe the first 2 turns, I don't know. But those first couple turns are when you're doing your landings and your airdrops and everything. And at least your initial ones. The chart for this does not represent the historical at all. It cannot. It's not like there's an odd, you know, a slight chance of different weather. It's always good weather for the end of the game in the historical. And I don't know if this is an accurate weather pattern for the period, or if, you know, the Allies just got very, very lucky with that string of good weather or whatever. It doesn't make much difference. There's not a whole hell of a lot that happens unless you get a rain result, which is pretty damn rare. So, I mean, however you want to look at that, you can do what you like. Anyway, I'm going to launch these attacks, see if the U.S. gets Messina, see if that last unit dies, or if the U.S. gets flung back, the Axis can pull out without losing Messina. Ooh. Result, the Panzer Grenadier is still there. I lost a unit, but that's okay. I might actually have a point back, because I think I could take a step loss on the big unit without losing points. It's only cadre reduction that costs points. And I'm going to count the victory points. If it ends up that close, then maybe we'll take a look at it. But yeah, we're pretty much done. You know, when I count the victory points, I'm going to learn something about the game. Something that did not stick. I'm not sure I ever completed a full game of this. I know when I first got it, I did not, because it was set up and then got kind of ruined. And in my later plays, I may have ended early. I'm not positive, because I don't remember. I know if I played with my wife, we did not complete it, but I thought when I did my walkthrough of history, I played every solitaire game to the end. I know I played fucking Anzio through the end, so. And theoretically I should like this more, but maybe it irritated me or something, and I just didn't have the soul to finish it. Maybe it looked obvious that it was going one way or another. This one certainly hasn't felt that, and I don't feel like the victory conditions allow you to think that it's obvious. You know, they're just There's such an obscuring factor, but maybe I was counting points more closely and came to that conclusion at some point or another. With this one, it went down to the wire. We didn't take Messina. I don't know what the points end up as, though. And we're going to find that out. Okay, so then dissecting the points. Airfields, I got all but one of them. The one I had the little chip on. I've cleaned the map, but just to make things not very understandable. I got all the tactical points except for Messina, which is worth 10. I'm not positive that I got them all, but I think I stepped on all of them. Unlike the airfield, I didn't see any that I missed. Eliminated German big units and the Italian artillery. Those are 5 points each, so that came out to some 65 points. There were there was one German cadre left. That was worth 2 points. The Italians eliminated were worth a couple points each, so I had 34 of them dead. All the Axis battalions, I add up all their strength, that ended up their original strength that were eliminated. That was 45 points. I brought in 3 German reinforcements. That's 15. And I used 2 of my German replacement points. That got me to a total of 294. For the Allies, they lost almost nothing. They lost one big unit entirely. I swear I took more damage than this. Battalions, I took a fair amount of battalions. These were worth their strength points again. 15 points of strength. That was 5 battalions, actually. But I only cadred 2 units. This, I swear that I took more damage than this. I don't know if anything flipped or something. You can't use replacements to increase things. And this just doesn't seem like enough, the 9 points for the eliminations. And then I used 5 allied replacement points before I learned that, hey, those actually count. I better stop using them. They might have saved me from cadreing some units, though. So that got me to a total of 265, which is a decisive Allied victory. Wiping out the Axis army apparently was fine. What does that mean? That means the Axis probably can't defend and try to hold the Allies off. They probably can't try to delay things across the center of the island the way I did, because eventually they will get worn down and destroyed. Allied air power, the artillery, the fact that the Allies get to choose where the attacks are going to happen, because the Axis really can't afford to make counterattacks for points or whatever. They'll lose more units. So I completely misplayed the Axis, is my feeling. What I should have been doing is busily withdrawing throughout. Now, there are no notes about the play of this scenario, but my expectation was delay it as long as possible. Well, I lost a bunch of units here. You know, that bunch of units came out to much of this, 33 points. It's only 100 points if I give them Messina on the first turn. Completely not obvious to me because of how the victory conditions are written. So without, when you feed me some kind of huge optimization problem like this, I'm like, oh, well, obviously I want to hold Sicily as long as possible. Obviously that's not the case here. Obviously the actual victory conditions of this scenario for the Axis are get your units off the damn map as quickly as possible. And that just didn't dawn on me until I played it. I'm not going to play it again immediately. Someday I may. But yeah, that's one of the things that kind of disappoints me, is that there really should be some kind of designer's notes in this. Now, there were not designer's notes in S&T games. They came out in moves if they were going to come out. If you were going to get designer's notes on the particular game, it would have come out in the Moves magazine. I think I had the Moves magazine for this one. I still do. It's just in my mom's basement. But, like I said, I did not play this game back when I had easy access to those magazines. Yeah, maybe I did. And so the type of analysis necessary to determine what you need to do for victory conditions just was not on my mind. And there's other games that I have that have victory conditions that are sometimes hard to parse in this sort of way. I'm thinking of the Korean War, for example. But in this one, your goal for the game is not immediately obvious from anything that's presented in the rules that I know of. The Axis player may attempt to delay Allied conquest of the island or decisively defeat the Allies by strong counterattack. Yeah, right. No. Right? And it doesn't say that the objective is basically, so the Axis player, here's how it reads. The Allied player, the object of the game is to capture the island as quickly as possible while holding losses to a minimum. Okay. The Axis player's objective is to frustrate the Allied strategy. Okay, well, that's what I tried to do. Depending on his reinforcement schedule, the Axis player may attempt to delay Allied conquest of the island or decisively defeat the Allies by a strong counterattack. Each game turn represents S. What was not at all clear to me was that my goal was just to get off the fucking island. And therefore, you would not want to bring the optional reinforcements in ever. I mean, I don't see a way that that's actually a viable strategy to try to hold the island as long as possible. I held Messina, you know. Granted, I did lose a large force. Maybe trying to hold Messina from there will work. Maybe something else will work. But as long as you have Italian units on the board, Mussolini can end up causing you issues with those units going into your dead pile if you didn't evacuate them and stuff like that. So I think that I just did not understand what the objective was for the Axis, nor the Allies for that matter. You know, in both cases, I thought the game's called Race to Messina, you know, or Race for Messina. It's not called try to prevent the Germans from evacuating or something along those lines. And again, you know, it's kind of a big game to go through to find out what the victory conditions are at the end. If I were a more analytical person, I would look at these numbers and I would have pre-crunched them. But, you know, I felt like I was doing the right things, trying to prevent the gaining of ground. I don't know why. You know, historically, Sicily's probably not that important. It's obvious it's going to fall. There's no reason why a few days here is more important than the Axis army. But my commander decided that we will hold it as long as possible because we read that the game is called, this battle is called the Race for Messina. I don't know. I really don't know. But it does make a lot more sense as to, you know, my U.S. forces were held up here where historically they basically were right on par with the Brits in terms of getting to Messina. I mean, they come racing along here, etc. Whereas the Brits get held up at the main line. Anyway, it was fun. I wish that the victory conditions spelled out, you know, made it a little bit more clear what the game was about, and or gave some kind of player's notes or something. Obviously, this is a game that actually exceeded the normal length. We're looking at 23 to 38, so that's like 15, 16 pages of rules. You know, that's a pretty big rule set. The series is generally going 4 pages less because it's only one insert into the rules. However, maybe it wasn't necessary to put the holiday greetings on the back of the game, although that is just an awesome picture. And, you know, it made me very happy to be able to see some of the faces of the people involved. didn't necessarily involve everybody in the group. Let's see, not available Eric Smith. That's about it. So this is pretty much the regular staff at that time, minus Eric Smith. Anyway, I'll send this up. And obviously, if you were going to play this and you watch this video, you would now know not to make this mistake. Awesome. I hope I remember.